It is 7 o'clock on a Tuesday evening, and you are standing in your kitchen clearing the table after dinner. You have a good amount of food left over in the pans. Maybe it is half a roasted chicken, a large scoop of rice, and a side of cooked spinach. You pull out the plastic containers, scrape the leftovers inside, snap the lid shut, and slide them onto the middle shelf of your refrigerator. You feel a quiet sense of satisfaction. You are being practical. You are saving money. You were raised to believe that throwing away good food is a sin, so you are doing exactly what a responsible adult is supposed to do. You plan to put those containers in the microwave tomorrow for a quick, easy lunch. You believe you're making a smart choice. But what if I told you that this exact routine, this innocent, practical habit of reheating specific leftovers, is quietly transforming perfectly healthy meals into a chemical burden that your digestive system cannot handle? What if the food you are putting into your microwave tomorrow afternoon is going to systematically attack one of the most vital, delicate organs in your body without you ever feeling a single sharp pain? My name is Harold Bennett. I'm 81 years old. I live in Scottsdale, Arizona, but I grew up in Columbus, Ohio, in a working-class house where frugality was not just a choice, it was a survival mechanism. My father worked in a manufacturing plant, and my mother stretched every single dollar she had to feed us. Nothing was ever wasted in our kitchen. If we had roast beef on Sunday, we had beef stew on Monday and beef hash on Tuesday. The concept of throwing away edible food was unthinkable to me. I carried that exact same mindset through my entire adult life, through my career in community health education, and straight into my retirement. A few years ago, after my wife Margaret passed away, I was cooking for one. That meant I always had leftovers. My refrigerator was a library of plastic containers. I would cook a large batch of rice, some chicken, some potatoes, and I would reheat portions of it every single day for lunch. It was convenient and it felt right. But I started noticing a pattern. Every afternoon, about an hour after I ate my reheated lunch, a deep, dull heaviness would settle right below my ribs. It was not a sharp stomach ache. It was a vague, uncomfortable pressure. It was accompanied by a wave of exhaustion so heavy I usually had to sit down in my recliner and close my eyes. I rubbed my stomach, I drank some water, and I chalked it all up to poor digestion. I assumed that an 80-year-old gut simply struggled to process a meal. I told myself it was just another normal, unavoidable symptom of aging. I was completely wrong. My daughter Laura, who is a registered nurse up in Phoenix, came down to visit me one weekday. We were standing in my kitchen, and I pulled a container of leftover fried chicken and roasted potatoes out of the fridge. I put a little oil in a skillet to crisp them back up. Laura watched me do this, walked over to the stove, and turned the burner completely off. She sat me down and explained that my afternoon fatigue and that heavy pressure below my ribs were not just normal digestion issues. She got my son Daniel on the phone, who is a physical therapist in Denver, and together they explained a biological reality that completely changed how I look at my kitchen. They explained that my pancreas and my gut were under constant daily attack. Your pancreas is an incredibly delicate organ sitting quietly behind your stomach. It is responsible for producing the enzymes that digest your food and the insulin that controls your blood sugar. It never complains. It does not swell up or throb when it is being damaged. It just quietly takes the abuse until it simply cannot function anymore. And Laura explained that the specific way I was reheating 5 very common foods was turning my pancreas into a chemical war zone. The first thing she pointed to was the skillet I had just poured fresh oil into to reheat that fried chicken. I thought I was just bringing back the crispy texture. And Daniel explained that common cooking oils like the corn oil or vegetable oil sitting in my pantry are highly unstable under heat. When you heat those oils a second time to reheat a meal, they undergo a violent chemical breakdown. They release toxic compounds called aldehydes. Daniel told me to imagine taking a piece of heavy metal and pushing it hard against a spinning, grinding wheel. You see hundreds of tiny hot sparks flying off in every direction. That is what those aldehydes are doing inside your body. They act as free radicals, flying randomly through your system, landing on your healthy cells and causing structural damage. Your pancreas is incredibly vulnerable to these chemical sparks. When you eat food coated in reheated oil, your body triggers a massive inflammatory response to fight off the damage. If you do that 3 times a week, your pancreas is permanently inflamed. It is trying to do precision work inside a burning building. I stopped reheating anything in oil that very day. If I have something breaded or fried, I put it in a dry oven to bring the heat back. Zero new oil means zero new chemical sparks. But the fried food was easy to understand. The second food Laura warned me about shocked me because it was something I cooked specifically to be healthy: spinach. I used to saute a large batch of spinach with garlic, eat half, and microwave the rest the next day. I felt proud of myself for eating my dark leafy greens. Laura explained that all leafy greens contain naturally occurring compounds called nitrates. When the spinach is fresh or freshly cooked, those nitrates are completely harmless. But when you cook spinach, put it in the fridge and let it sit. The natural bacteria in the food slowly convert those nitrates into nitrites. When you apply the violent heat of a microwave that second time, those compounds mutate again into nitrosamines. Nitrosamines are directly toxic to your cellular DNA. Daniel told me to think of my DNA as the master blueprint room where the body keeps all the instructions for how to build and repair cells. Nitrosamines are like someone breaking into that blueprint room and erasing crucial measurements. Over time, those corrupted blueprints create cells that do not behave normally. When you eat reheated spinach, those compounds enter your blood and travel straight through the pancreas. I thought I was feeding my body vitamins, but I was actually feeding it a known toxin. The fix was incredibly simple. I still eat leftover spinach, but I eat it cold. I put it in a cold salad or fold it into a sandwich. Without that second application of heat, the dangerous chemical reaction never happens. The third food in my refrigerator was the one that made me the most defensive. It was just a simple plastic container of white rice. I had been making big pots of rice for 50 years and reheating it out of the fridge. Everyone does it, but Laura explained that rice carries a silent, invisible risk that most people never know about until it makes them sick. Raw rice contains the spores of a specific bacteria. Boiling the rice kills the active bacteria, but it does not kill the hardened spores. They survive the boiling water. When you take a pot of hot rice off the stove and let it sit on the counter to cool down, the temperature drops right into the perfect zone for those spores to wake up and multiply. As they multiply, they produce a toxin. Here is the terrifying part. When you put that rice in the microwave the next day, the heat kills the bacteria, but it does not touch the toxin they left behind. Daniel used a perfect metaphor. He said it is like discovering a factory producing poison in your basement. The microwave shuts down the factory, but the barrels of poison they already manufactured are still sitting there, and you are about to eat them. That toxin creates a low-grade simmering inflammation throughout your entire gut, which sends distress signals directly to the pancreas. I learned that day to never let rice sit on the counter. The moment it stops steaming, I spread it out thin in a wide container so it cools rapidly, and it goes straight into the refrigerator. And I never keep it for more than 24 hours. The fourth food was the leftover roasted chicken. I used to put chicken in the microwave for 2 minutes, touch the outside to make sure it was hot, and eat it. I thought a hot surface meant a safe meal. But a microwave does not heat food evenly like an oven does. It creates invisible cold spots inside the meat. You can have a piece of chicken that is scorching hot on the outside, but the dense center is sitting at the exact lukewarm temperature that allows bacteria to act like it is in an incubator. If any cross-contamination happened in the fridge, that microwave cold spot becomes a breeding ground for systemic infections. An infection in your gut is not just a stomach ache. It mobilizes your entire immune system into a war, and the pancreas is caught in the crossfire of all that inflammation. I stopped trusting the microwave for thick cuts of meat. I put leftover chicken in the oven, wrapped in foil, so the trapped steam heats every single fiber evenly. Or, just like the spinach, I pull the chicken apart and eat it cold. The fifth and final food we discussed was the leftover roasted potatoes. I loved reheating potatoes in a pan. But Daniel explained that when you put high heat on a potato that has already been cooked and cooled, you are triggering 2 different problems at once. First, the high heat causes the sugars on the dried surface of the potato to form acrylamide. a chemical compound created by excessive browning. Second, when you cool a cooked potato in the fridge, the starches undergo a beautiful change. They turn into resistant starch, which digests very slowly and keeps your blood sugar perfectly stable. It is a fantastic fuel. But the second you blast that cold potato in the microwave, you tear down that reinforced structure. The resistant starch turns right back into rapidly digesting sugar. You take a food that was gentle on your body and turn it into a massive sugar spike. Your pancreas is then forced to panic, dumping a massive load of insulin into your blood to handle the emergency. Forcing your pancreas into an emergency response 3 times a week eventually exhausts the beta cells that produce the insulin. You burn out the machinery. I learned to love cold potato salad. It keeps the resistant starch intact, it never spikes my blood sugar, and it gives my pancreas a day off. After 60, the small things are what matter most. We spend all our time worrying about genetics or rare diseases, but we completely ignore the quiet, daily habits that slowly grind our internal machinery into dust. We assume that because a habit is practical or because it saves a few dollars, it must be harmless. But the body does not ask twice in the same way. It gives you whispers. It gives you a heavy stomach, a wave of afternoon fatigue, and a dull ache. I had to unlearn decades of kitchen habits. I still do not waste food. I still eat leftovers. But I handle them with respect for the chemical reality of what they are. I do not reheat leafy greens. I cool my rice immediately. I use a dry oven instead of a microwave for meats. I eat my potatoes cold. Your independence is protected in the small habits. It is protected by what you decide to do with the container in your refrigerator tomorrow at noon. You can either feed your body the clean, safe fuel it needs to run smoothly, or you can force your digestive system and your pancreas to fight a chemical war they were never designed to win. Make the small changes. Give your internal engine the respect it deserves. I am Harold Bennett. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you next time.